Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And as we go through summer, a lot of things happen in the summer. Summertime now is becoming a time where people are like getting back in the ground around Detroit. This urban agricultural movement to me was always something connected to Baba Malik Yakini, one of the people that's come on Detroit is Different often. And when starting my garden, I was like, Malik, I need you to come out. And then Malik in his own way would be like, well, brother, you need to talk to T. I'm like, who's T? And he's like, you need to talk to T. I'm like, all right, so how do we get this? And then it's like, let me give you the number for Tepfirah. So then I send a text message. And she says, go to Keep Growing Detroit. I'm like, what's Keep Growing Detroit? She's like, well, that's going, you're going to get your seeds and everything to grow and your transplants. And I'm like, all right, 1 second. You sound like my cousins that grow weed. And then she was like, all right, nah, this is actually going to be tomatoes, collard greens, eggplants, kale, curly kale, and tall kale, and all of this other stuff. And I get connected. And she also says, it's more resources coming. I'm going to work with you. I work with people with lots. Do you own lots? Do you do all of this? And I'm like, what's going on here? I just wanted to figure out how to have some food because I ain't doing nothing with COVID-19. And my dad says we probably need to grow. So with that long introduction, how I met her through the person that I thought was growing, and he concedes a lot of the growing information to this young lady. Tepfirah, how are you doing today?
I'm good. That's a funny story.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? That's the introduction. That's definitely the introduction. So when it comes to growing urban agriculture, you've connected yourself to a lot of different people growing throughout the city of Detroit from your own interest in growing in the city of Detroit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been growing. I've been growing in the city over 15 years now. And I've been connected with a lot of different organizations. I started off at the Greening of Detroit, running transplants, running seeds for people, doing soil tests. So I got a chance to meet a lot of different people. And then after Greening of Detroit, I went to Keep Growing Detroit, worked my way up from an apprentice out in the fields to a manager and then eventually to a director. And so I was a director at Keep Growing Detroit for a number of years.
And in Detroit is different. We're going to unpack a lot of this stuff.
Okay, let's go.
We got to go real far back in time. Classic
Okay.
Detroit is different. Your roots to the city. Are you, I don't even know what brings you here. Was your family here first? Are you first generation, second, third? How deep are your roots to the city?
Yeah, well, I am second generation Detroit.
Okay,
No, I grew up here. Cass Tech.
Okay. That's where it gets.
I gotta
hot.
you know what I'm saying?
Green and white. So, oh man. You know, I went to Northwestern. Y'all get on that Dexter bus. It's like, hey, they went to camp. So before we go there, okay, your peoples, where do they come from? And you said second, so that means that your family. Where did they come from? What led them to the D?
Sure. On my father's side, they come from Arkansas.
Whereabouts?
Well, they're in Little Rock right now, and then there's a small city called, I think it's called Ozark.
Like a TV show. Okay.
and Wheatley. So, yeah, they, most of us coming from a farming background.
You ever been down there?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so what was it that led from there to here?
Plant jobs.
Okay, and this is like a different iteration because if your father came, it's not like he was like the first. So he comes to the city like after, because most people's like great-grandparents came or grandparents came, but your father was like probably being called country folk, I assume, by most people here in Detroit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so his parents passed away, both of them, like right back to back, and he was one of 11, and so his whole family came up. They basically raised themselves. They was wilding out in the streets. Yes.
So it was like young people raising young people, brothers and sisters, siblings saying like, I think we can go to Detroit.
Yep.
I'm listening to
Make
the
some
Motown
money.
records.
Make some money. Yeah.
Was your dad the oldest, youngest?
He's in the middle.
So who was the moving decision? Was it like your auntie, your uncle?
I don't know that story. Yeah, I don't know that story. Yeah, he he was out here living fast and hard. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
so he's not with us anymore.
Rest
He
in peace.
passed in 2020,
Mm.
around COVID time and all of that. But yeah. So that's his story. My mother's from downriver, and so.
I consider downriver still a Detroit area.
Yeah,
Where
Detroit
her
area.
family's where is her family from originally?
Southgate.
Southgate. Okay, and then
Oh,
what led
originally.
to Southgate?
Man, you going deep into history. Let me go find these stories. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so
not
you're
sure.
unaware of that, what led to the Southgate connection.
Yeah, I
But
don't know how they got there.
along the way, I'm guessing in plant work, your mom and your dad cross paths, and then that brings you.
Yes,
What neighborhood? Where you grow up?
yes. Rosedale.
Okay. What was it like? What do you remember from your childhood of Rosedale Park?
I grew up on a corner in a corner house. We played till the sun came out, outside, sweaty, dirty all day. One thing I would say that was different in my childhood was that my grandparents took me camping a lot. They sent me to camps. I was, all summer I would be at a summer camp.
So I'm guessing this is your maternal grandparents
Yes.
from downriver. Did
Yep.
they stay downriver or did they move to Detroit too?
They stayed. My mom moved up here. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
summer camps downriver, black kid in that area.
Yes, exactly.
What was that like in your area?
I was the only black kid at the camp.
Yeah, so
and,
like in those camp pictures, it's like, oh yeah,
Yep.
that's that kid.
Yep. It was cool. It was mostly all girl camps, and the thing about it was that like you could go and like your hair be crazy, you'd be dirty, and you really got like a chance of not caring about
Boys being around.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't care about like how you looked, how you appeared. Whereas like, in Detroit, we had to have our, when I come back to the city, I got my chains, I got my Nautica, you know what I'm saying, my clean shoes. But that was like a place where I didn't have to do that. So I learned there like the difference between like just me being myself and then like me putting up the Detroit,
Okay.
guard.
So were you one of the kids like me, kind of raised? You spent a lot of time with your grandparents as a child.
Somewhat, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Single mom. My dad wasn't around. I didn't know him till I got older.
Okay. Well, I assume street life sometimes doesn't necessarily take on the most the strongest attributes and characters in parenting.
It's a fact.
So with this, that connection, though, your mom. What is your mom doing while you coming up?
Yeah, she's working.
Okay.
Yeah, working, single mother. Yeah.
Okay, just odd jobs, nothing what's the path? What impact does it have on you as you're growing and you think to yourself, because you definitely have taken a path as we're about to hit that turn.
Yeah.
In a way of looking at more so, you're engaged in community so much. So that's why I'm asking that. So
Yeah.
was it like, where does that connection you think?
I love my mama. She's a little bit of a hermit though. She's like a little bit, I guess like today you might say she's a little bit antisocial. So for me, like I always like put myself out there. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm gonna live this life. Like, let's go. Like, and I'd always try to get her out her comfort zone. So that might be a little bit of it. And also like, I think at a very young age, I'm biracial. So at a very young age, I was like contemplating like black and white and the disparity between like my white family and my black family and like the things my dad was going through versus the things my mom was going through. You know what I'm saying? Like I've always been contemplating
the duality
those.
of what that is. And technically, even if you black and white, yeah, you black by default.
And then hearing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, and contemplating. I've been contemplating, issues of inequality for, ever since I was young. Like, why is it like this? You know what I'm saying? So that definitely
plays a role in
absolutely
what that was.
Absolutely.
So school. You said Cass. Before Cass, where was you at?
Go lightly.
Ah, you went to Go Lightly. Okay, okay. All right, so if people don't know, Go Lightly is another one of the schools. You may be one of the first people to mention Go Lightly outside of like the vocations and things like
Yeah, no,
that.
the middle school.
Yes. So that middle school, what do you remember? What was the experience? What was the connections?
Wow, Kara, you going back. Well, I was like K through 8 at Go Likely, so we all grew up together. Yeah, lots of experiences. Out on the playground.
And then K through 8, that means it did most of your class kind of stay together throughout that time?
Yeah.
What do you think that impact does? Because, that's way more often back in the day, more so than today, where things are so transient. Like,
Yeah.
what does it do to like have that friend group where I'm sure you probably still kind of, I don't know if you like every Thanksgiving hanging out with people, but you at least are in somewhat of a pace of, a little bit of awareness versus today where, a school may close altogether. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let alone, kids transition. Things are more transient for children.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, I still have friends from middle school and then and in high school. Some of us went to high school together. So yeah, I do think that that's a little bit of a different mindset because we were very deeply rooted together.
Okay.
And then we saw each other grow together.
Did you take to the sciences and engineering and all of that stuff, or is it just
I
one of
was math. I was math.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
What was it about math that sparked your interest?
Math makes sense. I love math because like English for me, when I go to like write something, it's very objective. It's like, and then there's these rules that don't really make sense, like knife. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense. And you can, or the comma here. It just, my mind, and it was very like, depending on what the teacher said. But math is like 2 + 2 = 4, period.
and this is also unique, just as we kind of know just the always adage like girls don't do math, but you were leaning into that, and Go Lightly was one of those schools that embraced it and still challenged you. That's dope. You know what I'm saying?
Factual, yep.
So from there, you definitely end up at a school where you definitely can take on more challenges going to Cass Tech. Why you choose Cass?
Why did I choose Cass? I will say I wasn't like the traditional. I think people, when they think of Cass, they think of like
They parents, they mama went there, they granddad went there.
Yeah, and they think of like
they great granddaddy would have went there if he'd have been.
Yeah, and I also like I wasn't very cliquish. I wasn't very like So I think I don't know. I can't say why I went there, but I'm glad I did. I had a good experience there.
Because I'm guessing at the time, you know what I'm saying, Rosedale Park, Renaissance ain't. It's like over there.
Probably because a lot of my friends was going there. I would say that.
Okay. So your homies is there, and that grounded you there. What was your Cass experience like?
Cass was good because when you go in Cass, 9th grade, it's like a class of 1,000. You're like, oh my God, coming from Go Likely, where my graduating class was like 50. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, it was eye-opening, lots of people. And I was the type of person that I didn't want to like, I would go to the different cliques. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't necessarily, I didn't have like, I would go hang out with the nerds. I would go hang out with the basketball people. I would go hang out. I kind of prided myself in being able to talk to all the different type of people there.
That's what's up. All right, and I'm guessing the old cast with all of them floors.
Oh yeah. 8 floors.
Different type of Cass Tech experience.
And you had to walk. It was no elevator.
That seems to be the echoing.
That's the theme.
Yes,
8 floors.
It's like,
period.
5 minutes to get from the 3rd floor to the 8th floor.
5 minutes to get there.
Go to Cass.
You see these legs? These Cass legs.
Hilarious. All right. So from there, do you lean further into at Cass? What's your discipline? Are you leaning further into math, engineering? Where are you at?
Yeah. My major was in Cass was human resources. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I wanted to be a psychologist.
Okay. And what about psychology was something that interests you?
I mean, the human mind is fascinating. Always has been. I like talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I was always thinking about healing, like, like what does it look like to heal us
Okay.
people?
Yes, talk about it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So
I feel like a life in review. That's what I feel like right now.
yeah, that's what a
That's what
Detroit
it
is
is.
different.
Okay,
First
it's
experience
different.
always
Okay,
is
it's different. All
because
right.
it's like I got a ground to know said background, and then it knows like the forward, like the origination of like the path. Like
Okay.
it's really setting the roots of where we go from there. So during this time, what in community are you seeing? What it like even in growing or urban ag? Are you even thinking anything like this at that time in high school?
Well, I was still going. I had that camping
From back and
background, like
forth.
the land, and I would say it's an experience that a lot of my peers weren't
No.
camping. Okay, you know what I'm saying? But
The urban experience in Detroit.
it's not that.
No,
It's not that.
It's
So
like you camping.
yeah, no, that was a big part of me, and you know you'll see that later in like Black to the Land and that work, and like really, trying to bring Black people to that experience basically, but yeah. But then also like I had moved from Rosedale by then, and I was over on 7 and Wyoming type area.
Ah, okay. Whole different culture.
Whole different
We're
culture.
talking like what era? We're talking
90s.
like mid 90s, early 90s.
I graduated in 97.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're talking like mid 90s. So that's like the original. When I think of that intersection, I immediately think of the original Simply Casual. Shout out to Rufus and all of them. And yeah, it's the Mumford neighborhood has
That Mumford, the Mumford vibe.
a
Yes.
culture within its own.
yes. And like that was 90s was like house parties. We go on Northland skate rink. You know what I'm saying? We had our Mickey Mouse coats on, our gold. And like remember Northland started getting shot up every weekend.
I mean,
house parties getting shot up. I started having friends that was experiencing gun violence. You know what I'm saying? Even at Cass, but in the neighborhood, we experiencing this. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, that's when you're like, what the hell is going on with us? You know what I'm saying?
So during this time, I'm guessing, because so for people that know, it's not that big of a difference, but completely different type of community from Rosedale Park over to 7 in Wyoming. Even though some of the houses look the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
different.
but different culture of Mumford, like that community.
And I'll say I wasn't in Rosedale. I was on the periphery.
You was like on the other side.
Yes, I was on Ferguson Street, which is right on the outside.
Okay. So it's like you go over your friend's house with a pool.
Right. Oh, no, it was no pools to be had. No.
You go over your friend's house with a bowling alley. And I feel you. All right. But still, even being that close, that's still a different community of like the layers of like home ownership and what people are looking at and things like that.
And shenanigans out here. Like
yeah.
And see, kids don't know, like, we was outside all day, every day. And like they're in the house these days. You know what I'm saying? But we was outside and we saw some things and I learned some things.
Definitely. So at this point, I'm guessing now that I get from that field of that neighborhood and you seeing the difference, but some things just in Detroit are changing themselves and you're growing and all of that. What's your take? What's your take now as you look towards like the 2000s coming and where you want to be? What's your take towards? Are you looking at college? Are you looking at like, let me just go on and get a job? Are you thinking about relocating? What's your state of mind?
I went to Wayne. For math. I was going to be a teacher.
So math, once again, kind of anchors in that story of you.
Yeah, I went all the way through Calc 3, 4, all that, like.
And I definitely have to stop here as I ask a lot of people about this because Wayne State is another one of those things that comes up often in Detroit's different stories because what Wayne State represents in its relationship to the city its relationship to Black Detroit, its relationship to education. In 90s, if you're graduating then, you're kind of like a first iteration of quote unquote this newer Wayne State, because most of my time, I graduate 2001. So it's like I tell people, it's like Wayne State used to really feel like a city school for working people that were looking to get a university degree. And you had some very serious students that would go there, but it did not feel like what it started to become, kind of like, I guess, as your class comes there. Like no dorms, no...
Right. All those shops on Cass was not there. It was just walking the campus.
Yes. What was it like as you're seeing kind of some of those plans of what Wayne State's going to become, and you're kind of in the school? What was your Wayne experience like, just around that politics and observing that?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, things didn't start changing until I left Wayne. But yeah, I agree. It was a very grounded feeling there. And yeah, I got almost through, like 3 years in.
Yeah.
And I got linked with like the I would say the radical Black community. So I was like,
at Wayne State, or kind of through Wayne State, you met them there, and then because that's another thing. Wayne State also amongst this, as I bring up, it's going to be something I really wanted to explore, because the Africana Studies Department and the protests for that and what exists and how that ties even to a lot of the protests for Black studies to be in Detroit public schools. There's some interesting links that I've discovered through these Detroiters difference.
It's interesting because I actually linked up with them in high school. Like you remember I was like wearing my head wrap, like remember Erykah Badu? I was like wearing my head wrap in high school. I was getting philosophical. I was like, you know what I'm saying? And so I was going to the poetry scenes, you know, all that, you know what I mean? And then learning about kind of the history of rebellion in the Black community, and like
who was like your gateway into this?
Amir Baraki. When I first read his poetry, I did a paper on him, you know what I'm saying? So I would say that was one.
And let me point this out too, as you say that. So 97, I got to point this out too. Shout out to Kwame Kenyatta and many of the others that instituted African-centered teaching inside Detroit public schools. Because if you were graduating then, you had that book where the African-American literature book, where it was poetry from Gwendolyn Brooks, Amiri Baraka. We're reading and learning from Nikki Giovanni. That's how we're learning English. And this is something that I'm glad is in the archives of Detroit is different. But it also was instituted throughout Detroit public schools, which led to eventually a lot of things shifting, because even the instituting of that teaching and those books shifted
some minds,
multi-millions of dollars every semester that was going to Texas-based companies that just almost was printing a check, because at the point in time, Detroit Public Schools was the third largest school district in America. And it was just known, good money is saying, this is what you teach English with. This is what you teach English with. This is what you teach English with. And it took theories of years, as Kwame Kenyatta stated, and Baba Kinfense came on, or I should say Dr. Kinfense came on and added to that. And now I'm sure that our next Baba Malik interview will add a little bit more to that, and Shelley McIntosh added a little bit more to that. But it took years of planning where you need child psychology, you needed curriculum experts and all of this to institute it. And then with Kwame Kenyatta in place in the school board of Detroit Public Schools, it moves forward. And then after you get a bonding capacity of $1 billion, and then back to some of the Wayne State, then David Adamany and John Engler at the time come in and say, we taking that $1 billion because these black folks can't be doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
My opinion. So, my bad. But
no, I remember these times.
Puts the seed in a student like you to read somebody like Amiri Baraka as opposed to reading Edgar Allan Poe. No offense to Edgar Allan Poe.
No, factual.
Now it's like this connects with me a whole lot more than the Raven, because we talking about Black empowerment.
Right. Absolutely. 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 And then out in community, I don't know if you're familiar with the Order of Divine Reality. You had 5E. You had people like coming through. With some different you remember the 5%ers and all like those? So
Definitely.
Detroit had its
Nation of
own.
Gods and Earths
Yes.
was very. The Nation of Gods and Earths had a big influence, I would say, in the 90s and even today. Peace to the gods that do exist in the Earths that are in there. I mean, Injiri Earth, I think one of the best MCs from Detroit ever.
Yes, and she was at Cass. We was in the same class together. Yeah.
And when you talk about head raps and everything
Yes.
like that, but great
Yeah.
MC.
Yeah.
And so Nation of Gods and Earths that comes from the 5% Nation. Really, a lot of that influence hits a larger scale through hip hop. Rakim, Brand Nubian, definitely the Wu-Tang Clan, and
Yep.
and people are walking up to you asking the science, what's the math, and things like that, and hence, I guess, mathematics once again.
Okay, coming back.
To you.
Coming back. Yeah.
So I'm guessing as you doing this, your mom got to be looking like, what in the world
Yep.
is going on?
Yep.
Like, yo, what's
And
the science?
I went way deep in it. And I dropped out of school. I said I'm not going to perpetuate this system. As a mathematician, I'm not going to coming from math and science. What you would probably be doing is doing some things that will be destructive to the planet.
So in this community, you're also 7 Mile and Wyoming, down the street from Black Star Bookstore.
True.
Are you connecting with Black Star
Yes,
Bookstore?
poetry. Yes. Oh yeah, going in, all that. And then there was a couple different spots in the city at the time. Yep.
And I know that the gods and earth move differently depending upon what and where. Yeah, as you say, the different spots throughout and in the city.
Yep.
In a nation within itself.
Yep. And I would say I wasn't 5%er, but I bring that up as akin to the Order of Divine Reality that I was in. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was in that, and I'm
in that vein.
In that vein.
Yeah, head raps.
Okay.
Kind of going into a deep philosophical like conversations and trying to understand like who we were as a people and like how can we advance, you know what I'm saying? And so I had a spiritual teacher, all of that. And then after that, like I went into a life of like pro-righteous teacher, like for about 10 years. Like I totally went off the grid, lived in that life, meditated every day, yoga every day.
Let's talk off the grid. Because
Yeah.
when people say off the grid,
Yeah.
people have thoughts of what off the grid means.
Yeah.
What does off the grid mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was like living pretty poorly, I would say, and like not dependent on. I was trying to separate from this system, I would say.
So like when people say rich and poor, as you know, I get into so many of these debates with like Baba Malik and everything from my business school background and family of entrepreneurs. Rich and poor in value are assessed based on where you personally place it, and then also the way that a society can be influenced to place that. So I definitely think someone can be poor in whatever this asset is. Hence, this kind of becomes a debate around a lot when I engage in the discussions of resources around assets and capitalism. So cash itself's value is the liquidity, another one of those jargon economic terms, meaning that we can exchange it with a lot of fluid. It's hard to say like an hour of my time doing this is worth how much a T's time, and like doing media is an hour of my time worth an hour of T's time helping in urban gardening. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? We can say, okay, I'm going to quantify my hour of my time in media to, let's just say $30. And she's going to quantify hers in urban ag as $30. Fair exchange. Pop, pop. That's the value of what cash has. It's the understood transaction of what it is. But when we start placing values on other things, which I think that many of the assets and resources in life supersede what the cash itself is, and it's more so the functionality of how things can go. As like, I don't know if anybody's ever heard this one. It's not necessarily about having money, it's about having access to money. And really access to money means you have access to the assets that you will want to acquire with that. So when I hear of someone that's off the grid, quote unquote, if you can resource yourself, I think that's how you should function. I think this is when it always becomes tough, whether you're off or on the grid. When the resourcing of yourself starts impacting resourcing of others, because they may not have the same skill sets to bring to have those same exchanges. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You have that. If we lay a newborn infant, now you kind of got to work double. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you caring for someone that's elderly and the infant, you got to work triple. You know what I'm saying? Because what assets are they bringing to the table? And this is where things get convoluted within society, and this is kind of the roots of economic systems. So when we say when I'm asking about off the grid, I'm thinking about purely similar to the shed behind this house that my great uncles built for my great grandmother. And I know I'm giving a long soliloquy before I get yours. That shed was built off the ground. It has in-house plumbing, meaning like it has an old water tank if you flush it and all of that stuff. This is like old school. It has heat canister because they added this address to something back in the 1940s back in the 1950s when my grandmother was accepted as the person to care for my great-grandmother. Mm-hmm. So that property, even though the roof is collapsing, was built to be quote-unquote off the grid.
Yeah. With
plumbing, heat, a way for electricity to be battery powered. And that's always been in some ways, my attraction to like, one day I'm going to work on that property because eventually we don't know what will happen with, just, the sustainability of energy, the sustainability of water, the sustainability of a lot of things.
Yep.
So having a space like that, I think, could be very advantageous.
Yep. And that was my mind. That was my mindset.
So how did you go about developing a space and a way of life? And this is early, in that era, the YouTube videos weren't as prevalent. You know what I'm saying? This is like probably you got to go to a library and find shamans or something. Like, where did you get the information? We know you're great at mathematics, which being great at math, I think, is a great skill set for anything like that. How did you go about that?
Yeah. I mean, and I would say I probably didn't take it. There's levels to it. I didn't take it to where your grandfather took it. I would say my goal was just to do what I could to be self-sufficient because I was at the pivotal age where I was understanding what was happening to our people, how this society was impacting our people, and I wanted to separate from that. Like, I didn't want to perpetuate that. So my whole goal was to figure out how to live without them. And that's what really led me to farming, right? Because I was like, okay, we understand that this system has caused harm to our people, right? And in that, like, how do we begin to address that harm? You know what I'm saying? And how do we not only address it with this system, but create a more self-determined lifestyle where we can function without it? Is it possible to function without this system? Right? And that was my question. So, dropped out of school, dropped out of work, just living day to day without those creature comforts. Not necessarily relying on electricity unless I could rig it myself, basically, right? Like, all those things, right? Not dependent on a 9 to 5, not dependent on things, trying to separate from everything that has hurt us as a people, right? That was my goal. I'm early 20s. I'm very radical. I'm very much understanding that, coming into this understanding of this place where Black people find themselves in America, right? Like, this contradiction, you know what I'm saying, of being Black and American. You know what I'm saying? Because you're American, and you've been harmed by America. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, how do you? My mind couldn't, and I just totally pushed it all away. I just totally tried to rebel against it all, basically. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, what you're speaking to, I mean, Richard Wright, James Baldwin, so much, so much goes deep into this. I think Dr. Francis Cress Welsing crystallizes a lot of what you speak of too. So in that path and that journey, you said a decade. I can only imagine during that time, family, friends is like, what is going on?
yeah, my mom thought I was in a cult.
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
and maybe to some extent, you know what I'm saying, depending on how you want to define it. But I was definitely on some different stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And
Did you keep any of those familial relationships during that time, or did you like just kind of go cold on everyone and everybody?
mostly.
Okay. So within that, you establish new family and these new relationships and systems. How was it in that balance? Because that's a heck of a journey too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was walking with the Order Divine Reality for some time, and those folks, and as many, if you look at like kind of the trajectory of some of Black organizations, sometimes there's different in fighting and things that happen, right? So there was a split that happened there, and so yeah, I continued on the journey for some time, and that's that brings us to, I would say, around the time of Katrina in New Orleans, right? The hurricane that happened, and the realization that we can criticize the system all day and we can understand, you know what I'm saying, the harms that it has inflicted. And until we are like making the steps to become independent, seriously, not in theory, I'm talking actual, being able to grow food, being able to become energy independent, being able to do some of these basic functions on our own, we are in a heck of a lot of trouble until we can do that. You know what I'm saying? And until we have to, I was in my mind trying to make a shift from the theory of Black radicalism to practically how do we become self-sufficient.
So this is tough because I already see like somebody else in the room. It's like, that's what the white man wants you to think, sister, asking questions like that. Like now you kind of you went from questioning the system that exists to joining an anti-system, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
To now questioning some of the functionality of this same anti-system and finding yourself not finding those same answers. And usually systems like this, like a lot of systems, because this is one of the things that I believe in, why I like marketing so much. I believe that society indoctrinates us to a level of conditioning. And part of a lot of these systems is men lead damn near all of these systems because systems are usually designed by men, right? So being a woman to even introduce those questions takes courage. And usually it's going to always get pushed back. Where were you at in knowing how to navigate? All right, I hear everything you saying, brother leader,
brother leader.
master teacher. I'm saying that even though these babies don't have their parents don't have the consciousness that you speak of, but we're looking at these babies that need support.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, and that's when I got into the growing food.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, we had and I talk about this, but we had a blackout here right after Katrina, Detroit, New York, and that whole grid. I
remember that blackout like ever. That was 2003. Mayor Kilpatrick was. I remember this is vivid, because I had like a box radio and Mayor Kilpatrick, it was sounding in panic when the mayor was like, all right, now that's what we're going to do, Detroit. And I've just never seen that many stars light up the sky, because it's for anybody that goes into the country, it's like this anytime in the country, but never that many stars in the city of Detroit. Almost it's like stars don't exist in Detroit, in my young consciousness. But you take away all the city lights, people were fighting at the gas pump, getting ice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the stores was going low. And that, for me, that was the point where I'm like, the theory can only take us so long, and what practically are we doing to ensure that we're not in the position that we're totally dependent, right? And that's been the propeller. That thought has been the propeller of a lot of the different movements you see me in.
And growing, and urban ag was like one of those that you've learned, and even in that movement, now I'm guessing you're kind of meeting some new people from that. How do you start engaging in that work? And it seems as though you've taken a journey always as a student first.
Absolutely.
And then from there, you learn and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the ag movement contained so many brilliant minds, because it was also people who are looking at, like, how do we do this for ourselves in different capacities. It was Black radicals doing gardening, like Baba, and then there's like, there's church members who are like, okay, we got to do, like it was all different sectors, but all leaders in our community that I'm like learning under and sitting at their feet and going to their gardens and talking to them and sitting on their porches. You know what I'm saying? And so this was a whole different level of like leadership, and like, also like people who are seeing vacant lots in their neighborhood, like yourself, and like, okay, what am I going to do about this? I'm here. What am I going to do about this with my hands? You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, meeting those leaders, and then learning history of like the Bog Center and their involvement, and like how that tied into the Black radicalism that I was like, already like in sync with, right? And inside of me is like, oh wow, okay, so this was a whole movement. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, another thing, as I started getting into, I was on the east side, gardening on the east side in the about a mile away from the Hance project that came online. So this was another kind of eye-opening moment for me, where I'm gardening on this property. There was like a city lease at the time. I think I signed it 1 year, and then 1 year I let it lapse, and but I never really thought about like owning that property. You know what I'm saying? I never thought about like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go buy that property. I was just cleaning it up and taking care of it. You know what I'm saying? And then when I learned about the Hance deal that the city had with Hance Farms, who went from like, we're going to farm all this land, to tree farm. They kind of changed their plans a couple of times. And I think people really saw that as a land grab in the city, right?
Wait. So
let's
now
go backtrack.
I got to give some more context. So,
okay.
So in these iterations of Detroit is in such despair, and what do we do, especially in the shadows of all this mismanaged Black leadership that, Detroit is different takes a strong stance against. Even I'm against, as my godmother, rest in peace, Joanne Watson. It was always an illegal bankruptcy because the state of Michigan owes Detroit billions of dollars because of the deal that Dennis Archer agreed to. I'm going to keep pushing this. Dennis Archer agreed that the non-resident tax that people are supposed to pay, non-resident income tax, will be waived if the state of Michigan did more revenue sharing with the city of Detroit. That has never been honored. And that deal originally goes back to a Cobo Hall deal, shared with the region and the state. Shout out to my Anthony Adams interview here on Detroit is Different when he talks about working with the Coleman Young administration back in the day. But that's why. That's why the state of Michigan owes Detroit billions of dollars while still suing Detroit for billions of dollars and putting goofy people like Kevin Orr and Jones Day here to strip us. So during this time, and they're like, oh, Detroit is radical. What can be done? Who can save Detroit? Comes a different iteration of these same kind of type of leaders of one that has a basketball team in Cleveland, another one from Livonia, another one that you speak of, Mr. Hans, is like, I got some ideas. We can turn this into urban agriculture.
Yeah.
Pennies on a dollar.
Yeah.
And I will save you.
Yeah.
You
got a great deal on the land. And he was a banker from Southfield who said he was leaving a legacy for his children. You know what I'm saying? And kind of couching it in this very organic urban ag movement.
Yeah.
I'm an urban farmer. Nah, you're a banker who's flipping land. Okay. But I bring it to the point because a part of the land deal that he got was he got first right of refusal a mile out of the project, which included the garden where I was gardening.
Where you were going.
So to learn that I had been stewarding land, taking care of land, and he would have the first right to purchase it before me.
Yep.
Was astounding. It blew my mind.
It basically took you right back to your other teacher. It was like, see, it's like the system. I knew it. And in reality, yes.
It blew my mind. It blew my mind. And that there were a number of gardens in his footprint, right? And then I started seeing where, gardens were being taken for development, this and this and this. Like, garden down here that I don't know if you own that property or not, but if you could say you don't own that property, right? Somebody could take it and purchase it right from under you, even though you've been stewarding it. Yeah. So I got into how do we purchase this land in the city, right? How do we purchase this land in the city for gardens? How do we really secure those spaces?
Being a resident, trying to figure out how to do business with the city. That's interesting. Well, that's a journey within itself.
Yes. And why is it so hard? You know what I'm saying? To purchase land that I live next door to. You know what I'm saying? And so that was the propeller for the founding of the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. Yep.
So in the growth of this, now it's so interesting just your journey because you go from like anti-system to saying, all right, part of this is to be anti-system, we need to grow our own food. So it connects you to an urban ag movement. And now it's like, okay, we can organize collectively and we're going to be engaged with this system in some facet.
Right.
We would rather have this engaged with on our own terms than always through guerrilla tactics. What has it been like kind of in the organizing seat? Because this introduces you to so much more.
Exactly. So that's when I'm interfacing with the city. I'm just a regular person. You know what I'm saying? I don't know about these, the intricacies of the system and how that works. I'm interfacing with the city more and more, working with the land bank because I'm trying to get these lots for gardeners, and particularly black gardeners, because I'm working at Keep Growing Detroit, and I was seeing where young white farmers, often good people, often my friends, I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying, they're often my friends, but they also were able to navigate the system and get the land, whereas, black folks were not, often doing that or able to do that, right?
Is that an American story?
Classic story.
In some of this, let me get your feedback on this. Like, sometimes I think it's like the cultural understanding is like, so the example I always use is like a job interview. Everything about a job interview is set up from the lens of structures and systems that I think are culturally comfortable, let's use that term, for a white system. And when I say white, I don't mean like white person like my friend Steve. I mean white like the whole psychology of it. Because you can be black and grow up in a culturally white community, and kind of like white Mike that grew up over here, he's culturally black as hell. You know what I'm saying? So like he wouldn't fit. But like, so I usually use this example. Everything about the interview process, how you address, how you speak, you know what I'm saying? Hey, have a good one. It's like, what the hell did that mean? You know what I'm saying? Whereas if you went in a job interview and they said, hey, hit the electric slide, black people would be like, okay, forget it. You know what I'm saying? I'll do it. Mm-hmm. White people be looking like, what is this? What does this have to do with the interview? Mm-hmm. That's how the whole interview process feels to us as black people. You know what I'm saying? Because it's culturally not competent to what we're used to. So some of these systems and understandings, even if you have black people in them, because back to the institution of how it's designed, why I care so much about origins and roots, is it's always designed for that person to win. Or the other analogy I use, it's like we've been playing basketball in somebody else's backyard for, I don't know, since this iteration of these vandals and migrants, or I guess people escaping for freedoms from Europe came here about 700 years. You know what I'm saying? Since then, we've been playing in their backyard. So out of bounds, what's a foul? What's double dribble? What's a 3-point shot? They can change it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They know the rules.
They keep changing the rules for them. And it's like, damn, I thought that was a 2-point shot. No.
Right.
That's out of bounds.
right. So so that was the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund, which, if you're watching right now, the application is out and it closes July 19th. So that's an application to where we provide capital for your to purchase your land.
My farm won some irrigations monies and some other stuff, but and go sign up. It's not like back to other systems where you think every time you fill out an application or let me fry for this grant, you think that you're gonna basically get chopped right back down.
Yeah, no,
you ain't nothing. It actually empowers many of people.
Yes, we grab you and we walk through the whole process with you. And also simultaneously was working with the Black to the Land Coalition. So we have Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund and doing that work. And then Black to the Land Coalition came together around this idea of, Black people who were working on survival, camping. How would we survive?
Yeah, if the blackout happens again and it's a whole month, what's going to happen?
Exactly. How will we survive? And we talking all this stuff about this system. Okay, so if it collapsed today, what you gonna do? A lot of us gonna perish because we don't have the skills. We don't have the relationship with the land. We don't have land. and so, okay, y'all don't like this system, it goes away tomorrow. And then what? You know what I'm saying? And then what? And so I was just focused on the and then what?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And this is how people is like, what are you doing, T? You got all these different orgs you're part of, but all of it is about and then what?
So in connecting through movement, and now you've connected in this journey, and now I have so much more of a rich understanding for your connections to this. You also end up in something unprecedented. Detroit launches an urban ag department. And a department is big because it's coming through the executive branch. And the executive branch has executive powers. I've kind of had this discussion with many people about the difference between a task force and a commission and how they function. And this takes one heck of a stance on what the future of Detroit will be in leading something like that.
Yes.
How did that come to life? What has been the vision? Because it definitely has not been as functional, the relationship between Detroit and residents doing business in the city of Detroit. Because functionally, and when I say this, I'm not saying like Detroit stands out as worse than Milwaukee or Cleveland or whatever, but cities, especially black cities, shout out to Theo Pride when we did this breakdown a while ago.
Oh, I got to go watch that.
So in the 70s, as you had you had a wave of all these black mayors coming into leadership. So, you get like Willie Brown in San Francisco, you get Marion Barry in D.C., you get Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, Coleman Young, obviously here, Amiri Baraka. So as that leadership starts taking hold, the resources that states and the federal government would usually give to cities starts shifting. That's back to now this is out of bounds. You know what I'm saying? So many of the cities that had black leadership started making a shift towards private partnerships to develop money, because now the city to function needs to earn money and make profits. So this is where a lot of that stuff starts. One of my best pieces with Theo Pride, me and him kind of walked that through. When you study this, now it's kind of been exploited and exasperated to the point where a lot of times cities almost don't even consider doing like it's it's so much of an arduous task as a resident to do business with the city and engage with the city than to be a corporation, because the city needs to make profit. And it's like, okay, I'm only going to get $10 from you. Whereas Hans could come with 10 million.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a yes.
And it takes us the same amount of time. I got to spend an hour with you, or I can spend an hour with his attorney. Come on now. What we going to do?
Yeah.
And this is the thought process that has become systems. You
hit it.
You're fighting that. And now within that, to change and break some of these systems, and some of these systems are so ingrained because, like I say, it's calcified, meaning it's grown over decades to this point.
Yeah.
What has it been like to transition some of these systems? Because also cities like Detroit, to function, must make profit just due to the design of things, because those relationships with the federal and state government don't even exist anymore, going back to the illegal bankruptcy. But, continue.
I mean, that's profound what you're saying. And I think I also, I went back to school, urban studies. So I'm learning about how, like you said, cities need revenue. How does this all work? How does this all play out? And, for the critiques that we have, how do we make it better? You know what I'm saying? Like, we critique, we see the issue, and then how do we, what is the solution? And so I mentioned working with the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund, getting closer with city. I also, there was a proposal on the table last year for the land value tax. I don't know if we actually talked about the functionality of it and your opinion of it. But at the time, I was just thinking about all these farmers that we just purchased land for that now would be hit with the triple bill. That was the proposal, was to triple the tax on land and to reduce the tax on homes, which, we can talk about the logistics of it. I think it's brilliant, although I had all of these farmers who then would have this triple tax bill. And I'm like, oh, my God. You know what I'm saying? And so, I was, making a huff and puff at a number of different meetings, and ended up in a meeting with mayor and his cabinet where we're talking about this issue. We're advocating for an exemption for farmers. A number of farmers are at the table. We're talking about the different issues that our farmers face. Some of the issues you're talking about, getting through the bureaucracy. And I saw the twinkle in his eye. He's like, I said, we could use a liaison inside to help us. I wasn't thinking it was going to be me. I'm from community, so I'm like, they're not gonna hire me.
20 years ago, you was anti everything connected to this.
Look, I'm like, they're gonna look at my Facebook post. They're not gonna hire me at all. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I got a call a couple weeks after that, and was like, I want you to help. I want to help cut this tape, because here's where we're at in Detroit. You all know we have the land bank, for better or for worse, but they have consolidated land under one holding, especially residential property, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at their inventory, you have they're nearly done with selling off structures. I would say they have a couple thousand structures left in their inventory. They still have 60 to 70,000 lots. And more will be coming as more land, as some of those structures are demolished. Exactly. So I've been a part, being in farming, I've been looking at vacant land in our city, because that's a lot of times why you go out there and farm. You're like, what am I going to do with this vacant land? You know what I'm saying? That I have in my neighborhood. I lived in a neighborhood with lots of vacant land over on the east side. I was part of the parcel survey that took residents out to document all of the vacant land that we were seeing. You know what I'm saying? So I've been thinking about this issue of vacant land in our city for a long time, and telling the story of urban farming. Our city is 1/3 vacant land. You know what I'm saying? And so it's something that, if you're from Detroit, you can't miss. You know what I'm saying? And it's an issue for cities, because how do we manage vacant land as a city? It takes money to manage vacant land. And it also becomes an eyesore. It becomes a scary place. Like I said, I lived in communities. I lived on the Lower East Side for 12 plus years when I was going through this phase that I mentioned. I was on the Lower East Side, where we had 20 plus vacant lots on our street. And like, my children are out there playing in the tall grass and the places where people dump and all of those things. You know what I mean? So I've been thinking, what do we do with this vacant land? So I think this is where we have to have multiple strategies. So we have, go ahead.
I was, no. I want you to, I think where I wanted to get this interview, like just in your story.
Yeah.
Next, we definitely got to come back with, and I want to talk about the land value tax.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about definitely the community solar project, and I want to talk about some of the other things that you just speak with, but we can just start from having the discussion about vacant land. But I first always got to start with, who is this person?
I love it. I'm here for it.
Those are three discussions that I definitely want to have, because now you're in a position of sustainability, which is different, which some of this is it's a tougher discussion, back to, like, what do they say? Heavy is the head with the crown, or whatever the analogy goes, because it's not as linear of,
thank you,
black and white. This is good, this is bad. It's going to come from some dynamic. I personally think that living in the neighborhood I live, especially like a couple blocks away, what's here, what is vacant, who quote unquote controls it, and then what empowers. It's back to the considerations as well, because I think that oftentimes one of the challenges becomes that, back to the whole, we can make more money with the haunts versus the resident, then billions of dollars are shelled out and locked in, like especially like Downtown Development Authority, where none of that money can ever come outside of the downtown. You look at Henry Ford Hospital, that's outside of downtown, and even how they've partnered with the Motown Project. And then I go to, shout out my florists, the Brazeltons, you know what I'm saying, and what they're looking at, and they can't even get a consideration. It's back to, like, how does this become equitable? Because certain things seem to be given considerations, and they're not even from our community or in our community, and people that have been from the community and in the community aren't even considered for some of the benefits and assets that are silver line, because they're not even considered something that could be a profit generator for the city.
Mm-hmm.
So long soliloquy of stuff. I definitely got to get you back, like, ASAP too. Like, we gonna schedule, like, I'm gonna close, and then we gonna come up with some more dates, because I really want to talk about this vacant land thing.
Yeah, it's big.
People don't even, people hated the Dave Bing idea, like, yo, we got to consolidate the city, and it's like, I don't want to be in Detroit Township or whatever the hell. I don't know what would happen, but it's like, it's just real.
It's real. It's real. We are a city built for 2 million people.
Yep.
And we are,
depending upon where you at, I mean, somewhere between 600 and 800,000, And I mean, I'm just saying, like, and that's saying whether we a little bit less or a little bit more.
Yeah. And that also means that our tax dollars are paying for infrastructure for 2 million people.
Yeah.
So we got to figure something out.
I agree. And sometimes the government solutions can be, because it's different. These people got to get reelected. They got to respond. Like, I mean, even this weekend, the whole block party thing, where now it's going to be like, oh, you got to get a clearance to do a block party. So it's like, damn, now your your grandma barbecue or birthday, gonna have the cops pulling up on you like, hey, it's 4 of y'all outside with a tent in a pit. What's going on? And then on the flip side, it's like, if you don't do anything like that, just due to the random acts of violence that happen in America, and then it's like, people are like, what is the government gonna do? It's
I appreciate that you have that perspective, Kari. Like, it's really challenging to understand, like, the harms that government has done, but also the challenges that government has. Like, and to, like, understand both it takes a questioning mind. You know what I'm saying? So
always.
I appreciate it.
I want to boost. So classic Detroit is different questions before we close out. Very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
Oh, Honda Accord, blue, stick shift.
Okay. Oh man, ain't that something? Did you actually pop the clutch?
I didn't pop the clutch.
Wow, you knew how to drive.
I learned how to drive on the stick shift. That's why I be out here with my trucks and stuff like that.
You avoid theft. Like, people talk about You talk about what you call it? It's like people get in there and they be like,
right. Yep. So
like, drive around the corner. It's like, I can't drive your car.
right, cool.
Right. Where's the first place you went when you got it?
The first place I went, car shop, cleaned it out, get it nice and looking good. You know how Detroiters do.
Okay, that's what's up.
Shine it up.
Okay, I like it. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. You get to play 2 songs.
Oh.
What songs you playing?
Oh man. All right. Well, it's got to be one of my favorite songs is "Liberation" Outkast.
Okay, love that song. Off of Aquemini with Erykah Badu.
Yeah.
You was deep in your vibes then, right there.
I was vibing.
I remember
I was vibing.
that was 1996 when that dropped. Because I remember I bought that album, A Love Movement, and Jay-Z's Volume 2 all the same day from Records for You on Woodward.
Dang.
And then my Taco Bell money. Shout out to Taco Bell and Yum Corporation hiring me at a young age.
And then I'm going to I'm gonna go from there, and then I'm gonna go to Happy Feelings. Yeah.
Okay, wait. Happy Feelings.
Happy
Maze.
feelings in the air.
Okay, I'm with it. You're going to have people
We're going to put the good
hugging and loving
vibes
each other.
all through the city.
Right. Last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be?
Oh, Lord. Rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Dang. Can I answer that when I come back? Because there's so many. Coleman.
There we go. That's the one that gets the most.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. And you're going to come back soon. We're going to break down. We'll start there. That's how we start. Vacant land.
Vacant land. That is it.
And we can break down a lot of stuff.
I love it. I love it. Thanks so much, Kari.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.